Hi yogis, this is Julie from Totally Holistic Health, and we are going to continue our exploration into the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. We've covered all the yamas, and the second limb of yoga is called the Niyamas, and the Niyamas are split into a number of different sections, and this is the fourth Niyama, which we are going to cover after tapas, is called Svadhyaya. It's very difficult to say that, but that's basically the correct pronunciation. And this is the penultimate niyama, and it basically breaks down into a translation like self-study. So it's really, as I said, there's more to yoga than the asana practice. When you're actually starting to, most people tend to start their yoga practice by doing sort of like the asana, the physical acts, the physical sort of movements. But the more you sort of realize the benefits that yoga can actually bring, what we're trying to do is really get yoga to be more of a part of your actual day-to-day life. So when you're not actually in the asana practice, just basically living your life in a more sort of yogic way. And these are just observances and guidelines on how you're going to do that. So when we're talking about self-study, we're really talking about almost practicing yoga off the mat. So we're actually bringing ourselves away from the asana practice and sort of finding it is that sort of a journey of self-discovery really, and sometimes it's also about getting to know yourself better. And I know some people do find that quite exciting, but equally it can be quite a terrifying sort of thing. So a lot of people tend to, they don't have that much self-awareness. So sometimes when you actually do start looking deeper into yourself, you sort of actually realize that maybe you're not the sort of person that you actually thought you were. And there's a lot of people tend to it's also with your perception of how you sort of see certain situations. Some people tend to fit into a perception of how they want other people to see you, rather than living more of a truthful sort of life on how, not basically being yourself as much as you really want to. So again, that can be quite scary, because you can look at when you actually start looking inwards a little bit more, you do notice your strengths, but also your weaknesses do tend to come out as well, or you have to have that awareness of your weaknesses. Not that that's actually necessarily a bad thing, because once you actually know the weaknesses, then you can actually do something about it if it's something that needs fixing. Because nobody's perfect, everyone has their ups and downs, and there's certain aspects of their personality that necessarily isn't a good thing, but actually having that knowledge of it is really, really important. So rather than trying to skate over it, just having that awareness, but then sort of moving on and just sort of really building onto your strengths really. So with the asana practice, what it enables you to do is actually get to know your body better as you move. So when you actually do a yoga practice, I know it is very much if you're sort of like looking at yoga in that sort of philosophical way, it's really good to actually notice how you're feeling when you're doing a particular sort of yoga pose. So does that sort of sense of stillness actually allow you to move inwards? I know a lot of yoga practices tend to be can be a little bit faster, so sometimes it's more of a physical it does tend to be more of a physical type of practice, so you don't tend to have that option to look inwards quite so much. So sometimes it's quite nice just to slow down a little bit and just sort of really sort of take in what you're actually doing in each pose. So really sort of take that time out to sort of notice how you're feeling it, where it feels, what sort of emotions each different posture brings up as well. So it's really important to look at yoga in that way as well. I mean, do you have sort of assumptions of what that particular pose is actually doing for your body, or do you just tend to just go and do it because that's what everyone else is doing? I mean, do you find that when you're actually moving in a pose, do you have a conversation in your head, or do you sort of really take that time out to focus on sort of the sensations you can actually feel? So when you're resting in between each pose, yoga doesn't actually stop. That's actually where yoga actually begins. It's that little space between each set of moves that you actually really can take in what it's actually doing for you. So again, that sort of saying having conversations with yourself is not necessarily actually when you're in a yoga practice, but just having that awareness of how that particular practice makes you feel, and the fact that it isn't just a physical practice. It is it affects you emotionally, it will affect you spiritually as well. I don't like to go waffling on about spirituality, because that's not really what yoga is about. It isn't a spiritual practice in that sort of sense, because it is non-denominational, but you do have that sense of calm and peace that, that there is something else more than you in the world. So simple ways of practicing Svadhyaya. Get my teeth around that one. Meditation, obviously that's a really, really important thing, and it's probably the best way to sort of cultivate that self-knowledge. So when you're sort of travelling inwards a little bit, it can be quite scary. And the main reason, obviously people have that sort of mind chatter when they're trying to go into a meditation, and the mind chatter is actually really important, but the main thing is that you actually do bring that awareness back into yourself as well. So, and I know that can be quite scary, and that's why some people find that they struggle to meditate, because they really don't want to go inwards. They're not sure what they want to find, or what they are going to find, or whether they'll actually like what they find. But if you are aware that you may find things that you don't like, or don't necessarily like about yourself, you can make those changes as well to do something about it. So, meditating more will really, really bring that sense of stillness into your life. So, okay, you need to go through that sort of that uncomfortable area, but once you actually get to the other side, the more you do it, the deeper you go, the more stillness you will actually find. Another really good way of looking at sort of self-study is things like journaling as well. So, do you reflect on sort of certain aspects of your life? If you have a yoga practice, do you write down how you're feeling after a practice? Just to really, get to know ourselves and how our bodies actually feel. Practicing yoga, obviously, that's a really, really important thing as well. So one of the primary aims of yoga is actually that self-knowledge. So just basic getting on the mat regularly is a really, really good way of nurturing that self-study. But when you actually go onto the mat, do you sort of sit down and go, oh, actually, how does my body actually feel today? Do I feel I need to do something, move in a particular way, or do you just basically go for it and just do a set routine that you do all the time? Sometimes it's really good just to stop and think, actually, what does my body need? And if you do need a slower practice, then go for the slower practice. Again, you're just trying to nurture that feeling of self-awareness and what your body actually needs. Another good way of sort of self-study is just spending a bit of time in nature as well. Just going out for long walks on your own. I love taking my dog for a walk. That's my meditation. Just really nice, just mull things over my head, just enjoy that lovely fresh air on my skin in the sunshine, just feel really grounded. And these are just really, really good ways of just, bringing my mind just does tend to wander off sometimes, but it's nice. Certain things tend to mull over in my head, but I know when I get back home, I've had time to sort of clear my head and think about it, and it does make things a lot easier. And obviously there are other options, like reading some of the lovely yogic sort of scripts that we have. I've got quite a few books. She says just leaning forward and getting them. So if you ever want to read some of these little gems, just let me know. Some of them are quite hard going. Things like the Bhagavad Gita is probably one of the seminal masterpieces of Indian yogic literature. It's a really, really good story. It's quite hard to get your head into it, but it's actually very good. Again, the Upanishads, another really, really good book. You've got Patanjali's Sutras. There's loads and loads and loads of really good books, and I've got loads of them. So if you ever want to borrow any, just feel free to ask and I can lend them to you. So until next time, I will just offer up a little yoga practice to help with your self-study. And until next time, I will see you again soon. Take care. Namaste.